You just bought a boat, 21-foot bow rider, used, 40,000 out the door. The dealer hands you the keys. You hook it up to the truck and you're towing it home Friday afternoon thinking about Lake Mead next weekend. The kids, the cooler, the tube, the whole thing. Somewhere between the dealership and the driveway, a thought lands. You should probably call your insurance agent. So you do. And you assume, because most people assume this, that the boat is going to ride along on your auto policy or your homeowner's policy the way a bicycle or a lawnmower would. You bought it, you own it, it's covered. It's not. That's the conversation we're having today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jim Eddington, and my agency helps individuals and businesses with their insurance every single day. We write a lot of boat coverage in this part of the country because we sit between Lake Mead, Lake Havasu, and Lake Powell. And the people who buy boats out here don't usually realize how thin the protection is until they actually need it. So let's walk through what your homeowner's policy actually does for that boat, where it stops, what a real watercraft policy looks like, and the one coverage gap that turns a fun afternoon on the water into a lawsuit you'll be paying off for a decade. Most HO3 homeowners policies, that's the standard form a lot of homeowners have, do include some watercraft coverage, but it's there for canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, small fishing boats with a trolling motor, the kind of thing you carry on the roof of a Subaru. The way it generally works, physical damage coverage for watercraft is capped somewhere around $1,000 to $1,500. And liability coverage is usually limited to smaller, lower-powered boats. Outboard motors under roughly 25 horsepower, inboards or inboard outboards under roughly 50 horsepower, or sailboats under a certain length, often 26 feet. Your 21-foot bow rider with a 250 horsepower inboard outboard, it's not on the policy. Not for damage to the boat, not for liability if you hit another boat, not for liability if someone gets hurt on board. I want to be careful here because the exact thresholds vary by carrier, by policy form, and by state, but the general rule holds. Once you're talking about a real recreational powerboat, the homeowner's policy is not your answer. It was never designed to be. And the auto policy is even less help. Auto covers the boat trailer for liability while you're towing, meaning if you rear-end somebody on the I-15 because the trailer's weight changed your stopping distance, your auto liability responds, but the boat itself, the motor, the hull, the electronics, anything that happens on the water, auto doesn't touch it. So you've got a $40,000 asset with no real coverage, and you're about to put it in the water with 5 people on board. A standalone boat policy, sometimes called a watercraft policy or marine policy, depending on the carrier, is built specifically for what you're doing. The main piece is hull coverage. This is physical damage to the boat itself: collision, fire, theft, vandalism, sinking. You'll choose between agreed value and actual cash value, and that choice matters. Agreed value means you and the carrier agree at the start of the policy what the boat is worth, and that's what gets paid if it's a total loss. Actual cash value means depreciation comes off the top. For a newer boat, agreed value is often worth a serious look if you don't want a depreciation argument after a total loss. Liability coverage. This is the part that protects your assets if something goes wrong with another person or another boat. We'll come back to this in a minute because it's the most underbought coverage in the entire policy. Medical payments. Smaller, no-fault coverage that pays medical bills for people injured on your boat regardless of who's at fault. Usually $1,000 to $10,000. Useful for the smaller stuff: slipped on the swim platform, banged a knee getting in the tube. And there's uninsured boater coverage. Some boat policies offer this, same idea as your uninsured motorist on your auto policy. If somebody hits you on the water and they don't have coverage, this is what pays for your injuries. Boat insurance is much less commonly required by law than auto insurance, but there are exceptions. Utah, for example, requires liability insurance on most motorboats and all personal watercraft, and marinas or lenders may require it regardless of state law. There's towing and assistance, which is different from roadside towing. This is on the water towing if your motor dies 2 miles from the marina. Sea Tow and Boat US are the 2 big networks. Often a small add-on, often worth it. Then there's personal effects, coverage for the stuff on the boat that isn't the boat. Fishing rods, water skis, tubes, electronics, coolers, the GoPro that's about to go overboard. That's the architecture. Now let's talk about why one piece of it matters more than all the others combined. Say it's Saturday at Lake Mead. You've got your brother-in-law's family on the boat. He's behind you on the tube with his 8-year-old. You take a turn a little tighter than you meant to. The tube whips out. The kid hits the water at an angle and his shoulder's messed up. You get him to the marina. EMS meets you there. Helicopter to a Las Vegas trauma center. Surgery, physical therapy, 6 months of follow-up. The medical bills run $80,000 before anyone's done anything but the initial procedure. Your brother-in-law's health insurance pays a chunk of it. Then the health insurer turns around and looks at how the kid got hurt, and they want to recover from whoever caused it. That's called subrogation, and it happens on almost every serious injury claim. The person who caused it in the eyes of the law was the boat operator. That's you. Now, your liability coverage matters. If you bought a boat policy with $100,000 of liability, which is a common default and which a lot of people accept without thinking about it, the carrier pays $100,000 and you're personally on the hook for the rest, whatever the rest turns out to be. And on a serious injury, the rest can be a lot. If you bought $300,000 or $500,000 of liability, the math changes. If you bought $300,000 and you also have a personal umbrella that sits over the top, the math changes a lot. This is the conversation we have with every boat client. The premium to move up from low liability limits to higher ones is usually less than people expect. And in a lot of cases, the upgrade pays for itself many times over the first time it's needed. The premium for a personal umbrella that sits over your boat, your auto, and your home together is usually smaller than people expect relative to what an umbrella actually does. If you take one thing from this video, take this. Don't buy a boat policy at minimum liability limits. The boat is the cheap part of the equation. The injury someone has on it is the expensive part. Here's something that almost never comes up in the showroom and almost never comes up at the marina. If your boat sinks, or your fuel tank ruptures, or your fuel line fails at the dock, and gasoline ends up in the water, you are responsible for the cleanup. Not the marina, not the lake, it's you. Federal and state law generally assign cleanup costs to the owner of the vessel, and the state environmental agencies handle enforcement. The cleanup numbers can get big quickly because it's not just skimming gas off the surface, it's containment, it's testing, it's reporting, and sometimes it's pulling the boat out of the water with specialized equipment. A meaningful spill can run into the tens of thousands of dollars in cleanup and response costs. A standard boat policy may include some fuel spill liability automatically, sometimes labeled as pollution coverage or oil spill liability. Limits vary widely by carrier, anywhere from a small built-in amount to several $100,000 depending on the policy. It's worth asking your agent specifically, is fuel spill liability included? What's the limit? And is it something we should increase? On a newer boat with a larger fuel tank, it's usually worth revisiting. A boat policy doesn't just cover the boat when it's on the water. There are 3 other situations that come up constantly and they're worth understanding before you sign. Towing on the road. Your auto policy's liability covers the trailer when it's hitched to your vehicle. But damage to the boat itself while you're towing, say a rock kicks up off a semi and shatters the windshield, or the trailer comes off the hitch and the boat goes into a ditch, that's the boat policy. Specifically, it's the whole coverage on the boat policy, and you want to make sure the policy covers the boat in transit, not just on the water. Most do, but it's worth confirming. Storage. Whether the boat lives in your garage, in a storage facility, or on a covered slip at the marina, that's usually where the boat policy responds. Theft, fire, vandalism, these are some of the most common boat claims, and they don't happen on the water. They happen sitting still. It's worth confirming how the carrier treats your specific storage arrangement when you set up the policy. Off-season and layup. Some carriers offer reduced premium during the months you're not using the boat. In Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and California, the layup season is shorter than it would be in Michigan, but it's still worth asking. A few $100s off the annual premium for acknowledging that the boat is parked from December to February isn't nothing. If you're buying a boat or you already own one and you've never had anyone walk you through your actual coverage, that's the conversation we have all day. We are Western Pacific Insurance. We write boat and watercraft coverage in Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and California, alongside the home and auto and umbrella policies that sit around it. The link to start a quote is below. Subscribe to the channel. We publish nearly every business day, and most of what we cover is for homeowners, drivers, and business owners who want to understand their insurance before they need it, not after. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.